Well, hi, Angie. So, Angie, you're one of my favorite illustrators, artists, designers, and I love your work. And you've been featured in a few issues of our Aya,
Yes.
and we've had some conversations, and I just think you're such an amazing person. And I want to understand. So maybe you could introduce yourself to people who don't know you.
Oh, thank you. Now I feel a bit like shy, but thank you. That was very lovely. I'm an illustrator for the most part. I do a lot of children's books, illustrations for commercials, advertising, editorial. And it's for many different kind of topics. Like sometimes I work with companies to advertise their products. Sometimes I do editorial illustrations, and then I learn about various things around the world. Like for example, how architecture works. What are the new like scientific breakthroughs and discoveries in AI. So I think my work is quite diverse, and the topics and content that I'm exposed to is also quite varied.
You're so curious, Angie, and so knowledgeable about so many different things. How do you translate that knowledge onto your visual work?
Okay, well, I think it depends on the work that I can do. Like, so for the most part, for client work, I don't often get a chance to do that. It's only when I play with people like yourself or Steve, where I can have like more freedom to do what I want. That's where I can, try to jam all these little bits and details into my illustrations. And so you were talking about this illustration that I did for Aya, right? The Arctic trash one. And that one was really interesting because Steve told me he wanted something based in the Arctic. And then he wanted to have a burning igloo in it. And that was basically the brief that I got from him. And everything else was just like, up to me. So I've always been really interested in natural world science. I like to watch documentaries. And then I've got lots of like random trivia in my head. So I made a few points about the stuff that I wanted to draw in this, and things that I thought were related to Arctic or global warming or climate change, and then I jotted them down, and then I started to go research about them a little bit more. Yeah, so and then after doing all the research, I was like, okay, let's try to figure out how I can put all of this stuff together. Yeah. That's
So,
basically
Angie,
how I feel.
how do you decide what is going to go into your illustration? And do you sketch first? And what's your creative process?
Okay, like for the Arctic trash one, I think everything made it in. I was just like, well, heck, I'm just gonna, go crazy on this one. There was no like curation like process for that. And I think the process for my work usually is that I start with the idea. So for example, in Arctic trash, there's one part where like the ice caps are melting, and then like a lot of viruses and bacteria that have not seen like the light of day since thousands and millions of years ago are starting to come out, and as the ice thaws. And then so I was thinking, okay, how do I represent that as a drawing? So usually I'll like do little sketches just for like one idea, and then I do a few permutations of them just to see what I like and how these ideas can be visually expressed. And then so for all the ideas, I do like separate sketches. And then after that, I see what I have and I'm like, okay, how do I put this together? Yeah, that's basically how I roll.
And then do you use the iPad to put it all together? What software do you use?
Yeah, so I do like a combination. So like sketches, generally I like to draw on paper, like just really rough sketches. And then for like more refined sketches, I like to use either my iPad Pro or I like to draw on my computer using the Photoshop. So because then you can kind of move stuff around and then make it bigger or smaller, play with the composition. Yeah.
So how long did it take you to create that artwork?
I think it was like about a week or something, if I'm not wrong, ish, roughly.
Working all day.
Yeah, like I think if you're talking about working all day, I would say maybe 4 or 5 days.
Mm.
Or like, yeah.
Amazing. So Angie, how has have you always been drawing?
Yeah, yes, I think so.
Since small? And is that a big
Yeah.
part of what you do? Would you be able to do what you do without your drawing?
Actually, I didn't like drawing when I was younger because my parents enrolled me into like a drawing class when I was in kindergarten. I think that was, I don't know, 5 or 6 maybe. And the teacher was really terrible. Like she would just make us draw all the same thing. And then if we didn't draw exactly like the thing that she had on the wall, she'd come over and draw over our drawing. So I really hated her and the class. So I didn't really draw all too much until I reached like secondary school where we had art class. Um, I wouldn't say the teacher was great, but he was entertaining, so I paid attention. And I was also like hustling because a lot of my friends don't like art, and I was not terrible at it. So I was like, hey, I can do your homework if you trade me something or you buy me lunch or whatever. Yeah. Then afterwards, when we got streaming and we didn't have art classes anymore, I just hated like one of my teachers so much. I always doodled in the textbooks, and she found out, and then she sent me out of class. So I was like, oh cool, I can get out of class by drawing. So I think that's what really made me draw even more. I was like, heck yes. Yeah.
And then did you just then become an illustrator straight after finishing school?
uh no, I didn't even know like what an illustrator was actually. So I knew I didn't want to go to JC. And then one of my teachers, she was really lovely. She knew that I had an interest in like these sorts of things because I was always doing stuff for school, like making like greeting cards or like helping with stage plays. I would make like backgrounds and stuff. And then she's like, hey, there's this place called Temasek Poly, and they have this design course. Maybe you should check it out. So I did that, and then I told my parents I wanted to study that. And my parents were not very happy. Yeah.
What did they want you to study?
They wanted me to go into like JC, and I don't know what they wanted me to be, but just go JC, go to university, and I don't know, make good money, I guess. Be a doctor, be a lawyer,
And then,
contribute to society.
and then after that, then what did you do for your first job?
Oh, that was interesting. I can't quite remember like the timeline of things because this was like 10 plus years ago, but I was kind of lucky because in the third year of my poly, or maybe after I graduated, it's really fuzzy. I got to know this design market called at the Red Dot Design Museum. It's called MAD Market for artists and designers. So they used to like run weekly or monthly back in the day. And then I met some really cool people. And then as a student, I was like, holy shit, people are selling like postcards and making money. What? And I mean, keeping in mind, it's not like today where, you see lots of flea markets around. Like back then, people were like, what is this thing? Like, oh, what, why is this product so expensive? Because it's designer, like, or it's designed by a Singaporean designer. So there was not as much education or like appreciation for like arts and design back then. So I went there, and then from there I got to know a lot more people, and then my art got seen by more I guess like people who wanted to collaborate. Yeah, so I was kind of lucky. So by the time I graduated, Kelly Ching from the press room. Oh yes, the press room.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
Kelly Ching from the press room invited me to do like a show with a couple of other illustrators at her newly opened bar slash gallery back then. That's where I really got to know the OIC people. And then I was like, wow, people are like doing this full time. Because I yeah, I majored in illustration for in poly, but I didn't realize you could make money off it. I didn't think about like after. I just did it because it was fun. So it was kind of a relief to find people like Mind Flyer and be like, oh, you mean you can make money like this?
So were your parents supportive?
Not really. I
Okay.
think like most parents back then wouldn't be supportive.
Mm.
I had to let them know that I was very serious. So part of that was me getting good enough results for my O levels that I can go to JC. And then also me taking up like a part-time job to make money when I was, schooling, and just funding myself up basically, partly.
So Angie,
Yeah.
how do you get your inspiration, your ideas? What are some of your habits?
I read a lot. I think that's basically it. It's not. Yeah, I think I read a lot, and I think a lot.
You read a lot of what kind of books?
Anything that catches my fancy. Like right now, I'm reading about this French composer whose name is Eric Satie. Um, he's contributed quite a bit to like the musical movements, and then sometimes I read about, I don't know, the last book I read was about dehumanization. So like the stuff that I read goes all over the place. And then sometimes I like to read like trashy romance novels. I don't know.
Wow. And then when you say you think a lot, then where are you when you're thinking a lot? At home on your own, or do you go out, or how do you
Um,
clear the space in your life to dedicate it to thinking?
I think it's in like the space, like, when I'm on the toilet bowl or I'm on a commute or, just like when I have time.
Yeah.
I don't really make time to think,
Mm.
but it's just like, I think it's a lot of reflection because I think it's important to read a lot, but also to reflect on what you're reading so that you don't just regurgitate what you're
Mm.
consuming.
Mm.
Um, I think that part is kind of quite important.
So you're not on your phone on your commute then?
Oh, I am like a lot of times, but also like I think 50-50 ish,
Mm.
depending. Mm.
Nice. So what advice would you have to parents who've got children who maybe are like mini Angies who love to draw,
Right.
who are maybe not following the conventional path? What would you say to those parents?
Don't punish them. Firstly, I think what I really appreciate about my parents is that they never try to limit the way that I consume information.
Mm.
So I don't think they've ever like banned me from reading a certain book or watching certain shows because they thought it was too adult. So like when I was a lot younger, I was reading, stuff that was not suitable for kids. Um, and I think, parents have concerns about what is age appropriate a lot of times.
Mm.
Sometimes I work in woods in the books. This was like way back when. But parents would always like, sometimes I would recommend, after speaking to a child, I would recommend a certain book. And then the parents sometimes would be like, oh, don't you think this is a little bit too, difficult for the child? And I said, yeah, well, I mean, you can help the child or the child can figure it out on their own slowly, if they are really interested. I think that's very important. I think that is important to not limit what your child by what you think the child can do.
Mm. That's a good
Yeah,
message.
let let the child figure it out. If it's too difficult, they can put it aside and then maybe eventually they'll come back to it. But don't tell the kid like, oh, it's too difficult for you, because I really hate that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, that's great advice, and it's so nice to talk to you, Angie. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for asking me on.